an article in The Intercept written by Sharon Lerner, A Legacy of Environmental Racism. Basically, there's this black community in Texas that Exxon Mobil has been pumping toxins into for 17 years, and they've been complaining about it. And it's the Charlton Pollard section of Beaumont, Texas. And in June, there's a story in the article where these guys are just hanging out on their front porch, drinking beer, talking about basketball, and a boom went through this night sky, like through the and a stream of fire lit up the sky, and it basically was this happens all the time, the smell of sulfur, and nobody reported it because they're just like, oh, this happens all the time. This has been going on since 2000, And this is what this guy said. This gentleman who was sitting there watching it happen. He said, because the people suddenly get intense headaches, tearing eyes, runny nose. And he said, there's no point in complaining, looking out a row of modest houses across the street. A block and a half from Gaines' house, the street ends in Exxon Mobil refinery that processes sour crude, oil that contains high amounts of sulfur. The process of removing the impurities and refining the oil into gasoline produces sulfur dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, and other gases that cause respiratory, neurological, cardiac, and other serious health problems. Those gases also give the neighborhood a rotten egg odor that occasionally wafted in with warm breeze, as Gaines said on the porch. And this happens all the time. The plant releases at least 135 toxic chemicals, many of which, including 1.3 butadiene, benzopyrene, and styrene, are carcinogens, and the plant is regularly in non-compliance with the Clean Air Act. Yet many of the people I met on a recent visit to Charlton Pollard said they felt there was no point in trying to reduce the emissions. Like, unbelievable. And this is what these giant corporations do. Because back on April 13th, 2000, the residents of this town asked the EPA to force the state of Texas to revoke a permit it had recently granted the refinery to increase operations. The law requires the EPA to acknowledge receipt of a complaint within 5 business days, conduct an investigation, and send the complaint's preliminary findings within 200 days after that. After one response 3 years later, a promise to investigate, the federal agency devoted to protecting Americans from environmental threats did nothing to revoke the permit. For years, the EPA didn't even respond at all. Between 2000 and 2016, while the people who lived next to the plant waited for an investigation, the refinery emitted more than 400 million pounds of pollution into the air. Yet in all those years, the EPA never once consulted the people who were there affected. In May, 17 years after they first complained, the EPA issued a letter declaring the case over the refinery pollution resolved with only small changes to be implemented. So this is how poor people are treated, right? We saw the Dakota Access Pipeline. They were going to run it near, I think, Bismarck, North Carolina, or North Dakota, and people went, nah, no, ooh, too nice white community. That's not coming near us. Oh, we'll just send it across the reservation because, what do the poor Indians care? They've been doing this for 17 years in an African-American community near Beaumont, Texas. The EPA won't do anything. 17 years, 8 years of Bush, 8 years of Obama, and now we've got crazy Trump who does not care at all about poor people, does not care about black people at all. It took him, he was forced into condemning white supremacist groups. Forced into it after Charlottesville. Forced into it. Didn't want to, just barely did it. Like, oh, all right, fine, yeah, these groups are bad. Does not care at all. And again, why the Democratic Party has left this. The Democratic Party should be fighting for this. The Democratic Party should have been the party of the working people and protecting the environment. And yeah, Obama made some little things here and there, but this is egregious. This is offensive to me, man. And it's just... And here's one of the final paragraphs. Adding insult to injury, the residents of this small, mostly African-American neighborhood are now likely facing an increase in emissions as the result of the planned expansion of the refinery and an Exxon Mobil chemical plant that uses its oil. And the Trump administration rolls back pollution protections and opens the gates for increased oil production. Life in this and many other communities living near refineries is about to get much more dangerous and unpleasant. Weird that refinery wasn't in a nice neighborhood. You ever notice that? You ever seen any refineries in really nice neighborhoods? Any pipelines going near golf courses or anything like that? You ever seen that? I haven't. Big condo development, big resort golf community. You ever seen that? You ever seen them have to suffer through this kind of crap? No. This country is about greed and racism and doesn't give a shit about the poor. It doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, there's racism for sure, not denying that. But if you're poor, fuck you. It doesn't matter if you're white, black, or Latino, Asian. It doesn't matter if you're poor. Sorry, don't care. We don't care. And we know you don't have power. And we know you don't have a voice. So who gives a shit? And the Democrats wonder why everybody has abandoned that party. And why some people voted for this wingnut that's about to get us into World War III. Well, it's scary and frustrating. I kind of get it if you've just been abandoned. Because they've done this kind of shit to poor white communities. The Democrats didn't help them. Republicans don't care. So it's brutal, guys, but it just again shows why there needs to be real progressives and why we need to get out and pay attention, and why I like covering these little small stories. Well, they're not small, but I mean, they're in small parts. We didn't know about this, and I like going to websites like The Intercept and Truthdig and stuff like this, because MSNBC isn't doing this story. CNN isn't doing this story. And if they do, they'll cover it once or twice, maybe, and then bail. Right? And they'll make it all about racism, which is, it is racist for sure, but it's not that. They won't go into how corporations are screwing people over because ExxonMobil buys ad time on CNN and MSNBC. Stay vigilant, my friends. Thanks for supporting the show.